All right, so as you guys have probably seen from the week 3 tab under Unity Tutorial Series Creator Kit, we're just going to be following a tutorial series on how to build a Unity project. Now, the Creator Kit is basically the sort of, think of it as a basic starter kit created by Unity themselves, which people can use to actually learn about the workflow of Unity development. Now, most of the stuff that is covered in this tutorial series is stuff that I've covered from the video recordings from last week, so the week 2 videos, as well as the manual pages that I linked. But like I said earlier, it is a really good way to sort of review the stuff that we've touched on when with that last week content, and also you get to build something at the same time. The really great thing about this creator kit is that you're provided with a lot of assets and working components. So stuff like 3D models, animations, like scoring systems, movement systems, and all that sort of stuff. So you don't have to worry about how to actually implement those systems, but rather you can focus more on how to arrange them in order to get this sort of working project or game application going. So the series itself, so you can actually head over to the tutorial page by clicking on this link here, which should be transporting you to this Unity Learn page that you see here. Now, this series is comprised of multiple sections, but mainly you're going to be dealing with the 6 sections here, starting from Get Started with the Creator Kit FPS, all the way down to Onward and Upward, where you actually get to build a standalone application version for your project. Basically, a standalone application is something that you make so that you don't have to go open up Unity Editor to actually play your game or application. So you just have like an executable file. So kind of like like when you install a game, you just have to the exe file for that to actually play it. Now, I've actually gone ahead and opened up the Unity project in advance. So just to give you a better idea of what the project will look like when you're done running through the series. So quick background, info about the project. Basically, it's a first-person shooter game, as you could probably tell from the Creator Kit FPS title. And you play this doctor that's been miniaturized and put into the insides of someone or something. And you basically eradicate these enemies, like which are these germs that are scattered throughout the levels. And the main goal is to get from point A, the starting point, all the way to point B, and making sure that all the germs in the level are exterminated. So I'm actually going to go ahead and play the game here, just to give you a better idea. So as you can see there, we have your typical first-person shooter setup. So you have, you can use your WASD keys to move around, or your arrow keys, depending on your preference. You can use the mouse to aim around with your gun, and then if you want to shoot, you just go ahead and press the left mouse button. So again, like a typical shooter. You have the multiple weapons available for you as well. And again, the main point is to get from point A to point B. So let me just go ahead and sort of get to that. Now, one of the main things that you are going to implement in this project is you're going to set up this lock door mechanism in between you and the endpoint of the level. So this is this fat blob here. And basically, you need to get a key item that's placed somewhere in your level to actually get past this key lock. So as you can see here, if you approach the lock door, you're going to get this sort of indicator that you need a key. So I'm just going to go ahead and go back to the area that actually has that key item. And also you get to make the different types of enemies. So you've got the one spiky germ, and you've also got this one giant sort of germ thing as well. I'm just going to go ahead and use a grenade on that. Only got that one, so I'm just going to go ahead and spam. So that was that key item right here. So you just need to touch it to actually obtain it, and then you can then go ahead and go back to the locked door to open it up. Yeah, and there we go. So you can see there, it plays this animation of the door melting away. which means you can now get past the door and head over to the endpoint where you actually get this sort of end of level screen. And basically it just shows you like your score, how long it took you to actually finish the level, and if you missed any germs. Now, again, like I said earlier, the nice thing about this is you don't have to worry about setting up all these complicated systems like the scoring system or the movement and the shooting mechanics. It's just a matter of you actually arranging everything and setting up and changing the properties of each of the game objects or prefabs to something that you think you actually like. And that's pretty much it for the game. Fairly simple, but enough to get you started with learning about the workflow when it comes to Unity development. So in terms of what is actually covered in the series, so first things first, you're going to set up these enemy types. So you have this spiky germ enemy, and you've also got this sort of fat giant germ enemy as well. Next, you're going to set up the level layout. So you're actually going to take these various rooms and corridors and arrange them into this specific layout that you want to have, depending on your design. Once you've arranged the level layout, you then go ahead and set an endpoint for your level. So in my case, I've set it up here, past this sort of locked door. And again, that's another thing that you have to set up as well. You need to set up this locked door as well as the key that will unlock the said door, which is this key right here. Another thing that you will do as well is you're going to set up custom weapons for your doctor avatar. So again, remember earlier that we had like the 3 types of weapons. So you're going to add 1 more weapon type on top of that. And once all is said and done and everything works as expected and you're pretty happy with the results, you then go ahead and do a standalone build of your project. So pretty fun. I reckon you guys will have a bit of a blast sort of messing around with the kit itself. So again, remember that you have 6 sections to worry about in the tutorial. All of that is listed in here in the webpage. In particular, please pay attention to any notes that I have in case they are, set up. So for this example, I say skip steps 1, 2, and 3 in the Get Started with a Creator Kit FPS section, which would be this one. The reason I'm asking for you to skip that is because those first 3 steps basically just deal with setting up Unity and setting up the project itself, which we're going to be covering anyway, so you don't have to follow that. So you can just jump immediately to step 4. Oops. Okay. Now, on top of the Creator Kit FPS, you also have Creator Kit Beginner Code. Now, I don't recommend you touching this until you actually finish the Creator Kit FPS project. But basically, this big series is a really good crash course for people with little to no coding experience on the basic concepts that you need to understand so that you could actually get started with writing basic C# scripts. So if I just go ahead and open this up, you get another Unity Learn page with the Beginner Code series. Now, this one is a bit longer compared to the FPS series. However, it is really worth, I cannot overstate how worth it is to actually do the series, because you will be able to write really simple sort of sets of instructions to do basic interactions or behaviors for your upcoming projects, in particular with the AR and VR projects that you have. So again, if you don't have any coding experience, then I highly recommend that you do this as well outside the tutorial hours, because right now, for this session, we're only focused on finishing the Creator Kit FPS series. Now, if you're like a Kit 208 student, or you already sort of know the basics of programming, you don't really need to touch this, because this is stuff that you should have covered already in your first year. So there's nothing really useful in the series for you, so you're safe to skip it. Remember that the language that we're using for Unity is C#. However, if you're not familiar, or if you haven't used C# before, but you have used other programming languages, you don't really have to touch this series either, because really it's just a matter of learning the syntax difference between your main language and C#. which is something that you can easily fix just by Googling like C# versus whatever programming language that you're using in terms of differences. So theory and concepts should overall be the same. All right. So your work in the CreatorKit FPS, I will actually need to know how you're progressing with that. Initially, what I did was that I would set up a screen share for each and every single person in the session. However, I found it really challenging to sort of keep that up while juggling troubleshooting as well, because I've had a lot of students come across some issues. So I think for now, what I'm just going to do is the usual. So sometime after the first half of this session, I'm just going to send everybody a private message asking about their current progress with the series. So again, just make sure that you reply to that so that I can actually tick you off for attendance for this session, okay? All right, so I think that is everything that I need to cover. So let's actually go ahead and set up this project so that you can start following the tutorials. Now, first I want you to do is I want you to start downloading the CreatorKit FPS Unity package file from Milo. Make sure that you're downloading this package file from Milo itself. The reason for that is because this is tailored for our current version of Unity, which is 2019.4. If you downloaded the CreatorKit FPS project from Unity Hub, you are going to be getting the 2020 version, which is not going to work for our current installation. So make sure that you're actually downloading it from Milo, okay? Now, for demonstration purposes, I've actually gone ahead and downloaded the package file to my desktop. So once you finish the download, really the only thing you need to do now is to just set up a new Unity project via Unity Hub. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open Unity Hub. I'm just going to close this now because that's actually going to conflict with what I'm about to do next. And once you're in Unity Hub, just go ahead and create a brand new project. So just click on the new button. Make sure that your template is set to 3D. And I'm just going to do something like this. And then just wait for your project to finish loading. Now, while we're waiting for this, another thing that I wanted to cover is that you can actually track your current progress with this tutorial series. So if you go ahead and log into your Unity account using this button here in the Unity Learn page, you can actually track your current progress by marking these steps as complete. So in each of these step boxes here, there's a Mark Step as Completed button. So you just go ahead and click that, and that should give you like a green tick on each of the steps where you press that button. But remember, you need to be logged into your Unity account to actually track that progress. So really handy, especially if this is something that you have to revisit later on. Okay, so once you've downloaded the package file and you have a brand new Unity project open, the next thing that you just need to do is you need to go back to the folder where you've saved that package file. So in my case, again, it's the desktop. And then just go ahead and open the package file by double-clicking on it. Now, by doing that, your Unity editor window should automatically be brought back up, and you should start seeing a progress bar for importing your package. Now, if you get this sort of window that I have here, which is like a warning, really the only thing you need to do is click on install/upgrade to proceed with the import. I'm just making sure that, yep, no one's asking a question yet, so that's good. Now, the duration of like the import itself, that will really just depend on your machine. So like you can't really do much for this step. You just have to wait for this process to finish. Okay, now once you get this sort of import Unity package window to appear in your Unity window, just make sure that the check boxes are ticked for all of these items here, because those are the assets contained in this package. Now, all of them should be automatically ticked by default, but just double check to make sure. And once you know that everything is ticked, you can go ahead and click on the import button to finish off the import process. And again, this will take a while, so it's just a matter of waiting. Sorry about that. Okay, so now the import process has finished, which is good. Now, for most of you, or pretty much all of you, you might notice this sort of warning on the bottom left corner of the window. Now, this warning should say something along the lines of import parameters got modified during import. You shouldn't really be worried about this warning. While I can't say for certain what causes this error warning message, I think it has something to do with the fact that we're using 2019.4, because originally the CreatorKit FPS project was made for either 2019.1 or 2019.2. However, given the testing that I've done for this project before this tutorial started, nothing seems to be out of order. Everything should work as they should. So really, there's nothing to worry about, even if you see this warning. So feel free to ignore it. Okay. So after the import, you should see this brand new folder that you have here in the assets folder called CreatorKit-FPS. So that contains all of the assets in the project that you will be using for the tutorials. So if you go ahead and open the CreatorKit-FPS folder from the assets folder in the project view, and then open up the scenes folder next, you should be able to see this file called example scene. So just go ahead and open that. And once you open that, you should see that in your scene view, it's loaded in this brand new level. And basically, this is an example scene that sort of indicates the kind of work that you'll be doing for this tutorial. This isn't the final product. Rather, it's an example of what you could potentially do with the kit itself. And also, one of the steps in the tutorial series asks you to try out the game just so that you get a feel of what the project would look like in step 6 on section 1. So that's how you access that scene file. Now, one last thing that I need to point out is that in section 2, so that this is where you start customizing the germ targets, creating the enemies of your game, you actually need to start from scratch with a brand new scene. So the way you do that in this project is you just go ahead in your Unity editor window, just click on the FPS kit menu option from the menu bar at the top. And then in the pop-up menu that appears, just go ahead and click on create new scene. Feel free to give the scene file any name that you want, and then go ahead and click save. And now you should be able to see that your scene view has changed again, and this time you only have this one single blue skull room. And this is going to be the starting point for your level. And once you're in the scene, you can go ahead and continue on with the next set of steps for section 2. Now, while you're following these steps, another thing that I need to point out, is that for some of them, you actually need to drag specific assets from the project view to the scene view to actually add them as game objects in your level. One thing that I need to ask people is that they need to be really careful and make sure to double check that they're dragging the correct asset from the project view. So say, for example, in here, so step number 4, which is something that you'll encounter later. 4.1 says in the project window, go to assets / CreatorKit FPS / art / models / characters and select the GermSpike asset. And then you're going to be dragging that GermSpike asset into the scene view, as you can see here in the screenshot. Now, if you follow that directory, so assets, and then CreatorKit FPS, and then art, and then models, then characters. One thing that you'll immediately notice is that there's actually two GermSpike assets in this folder. So you have just GermSpike, which is this sort of black blob looking thing in the thumbnail, and you have GermSpike model. So make sure that you're dragging the correct file. So again, in the step itself, it's telling you to select the GermSpike asset. So you want to drag this guy here, not this one, because these are two completely different assets, and they all contain different things. So I'm going to go ahead and drag that in. And the reason that you want to be careful with this is because if you have a look at the GermSpike game object, if you head over to the hierarchy and you actually expand the GermSpike object by clicking on this arrow here on the left-hand side of the object name, you'll notice that it's actually comprised of different other game objects. So you have GermSpike model, hit player, and then idle player. Now, hit player and idle player are the game objects that you need to have for this next step here in step 5, which is where you set up like audio settings for your germ prefab. If you actually drag the GermSpike model on the scene, and if you expand the GermSpike model object, you'll notice that it's actually missing the hit player and the idle player objects, which is what you can find here in GermSpike. So again, just be really careful with what you're dragging into the scene. Make sure that you double check the names so that you don't stumble across any trouble while you're following the tutorials. All right, and that I think covers everything that I need to cover. So I will leave you guys to it. So again, the main goal for today is to get through that CreatorKit FPS series. Ideally, you want to finish before the end of this tutorial session. But again, you have until next week's session to actually get through everything. And don't forget about CreatorKit Beginner Code as well. Again, if you don't have any sort of programming experience whatsoever, because you will be making use of that later on in the following weeks. Now, one last thing is I actually did a bit of an extra sort of bonus where I actually took this CreatorKit FPS kit, which is something that you control with your mouse and keyboard. And I've actually branched it out into two separate projects. And these two projects could be like a potential AR version and a VR version. And I'll be demonstrating these two versions later on before the end of the session. So about 15 minutes before the session ends, so 10:35. And by doing this, I hope to give everyone like a bit of a teaser of like the kind of applications that they can expect to make later on when we get to the AR and VR modules of these tutorials. So, if you're interested, then I highly recommend sticking around for that quick demo, but it's not something that I'm going to force people to watch if they're not really that, interested anyway. But seeing as you're doing this unit anyway for AR and VR, then, might as well give it a look, yeah? Okay. All right, that is everything for me. So I'll leave you guys to it. You guys know the drill. If you stumble across any issues, just send me a private message and I'll make sure to get back as soon as I can. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and disable webcam and microphone again, but I will still be around.